In Year 7, today we're going to look at the Jewish death and funeral service, okay? So it's linking nicely to what you learnt on Wednesday, which was about the afterlife. Okay then, so the big question for today is, what are the Jewish rites surrounding death? And the small question, what happens at a Jewish funeral, and what are the Jewish beliefs surrounding death? Okay then, to get started, we're just going to look at a short YouTube clip that explains some of the belief systems in Judaism about death. Okay then, so we're going to just quickly watch the clip, and then we'll talk about the clip in a couple of minutes.
Disorienting time, and isn't something many people think about until it's actually happening to them. Judaism offers structured periods of mourning that help provide some support in the grieving process. Jewish tradition is to bury the dead as soon as possible. The period from the time of death until the funeral is called Haninut. After hearing about a death, immediate family members may tear a piece of their clothing. This ripping is called kriya. You're tearing a hole in the fabric of your normal life. Many do kriya at the funeral. During Haninut, many people don't know what to say or do. Sometimes they ask mourners, "Is there anything I can do?" They get the automatic response, "No, I've got it under control." If you're a mourner, accept help. It's okay. You have a lot to plan, and a lot on your mind. If you're a friend, offer to take care of errands, grocery store runs, walking the dog. It gives you a way to connect with the mourners and help in their grieving process. Meanwhile, traditionally, a chevra kadisha, or burial society, takes care of the body. You can find one through a funeral home or synagogue. As swiftly as possible, the funeral happens, sometimes the next day. Afterwards, friends and relatives bring a meal of consolation to the mourners. Unlike normal meals, where you are a gracious host, at this meal, the community takes care of you. Then shift begins. Traditionally, it lasts for 7 days after the burial, and is an intense mourning period spent at home by the immediate family. Another period, called shloshim, when the family can go outside the house. During the shloshim, some people won't go to concerts or parties, wear new clothes, or shave. And for the children of the deceased, the entire mourning period, called avilut, lasts for nearly a year, during which mourners recite a prayer, called the Mourner's Kaddish, daily. At the end of avilut, there's an unveiling service to place the tombstone at the grave. It's a time to remember again, to close this intense part of the cycle of mourning. But we never forget our loved ones. 4 times a year, there is a special Yizkor service in synagogues to remember all those we've lost. And each year, on the anniversary of their passing, we say Kaddish again, and light a yortzeit candle in their memory. To learn more, there are 4 more videos in this series.
Okay then, Year 7, so we'll go back to the workbook, and we'll have a look at the facts now surrounding the Jewish funeral. Obviously that clip's quite interesting. We learn about how they start to mourn, and how others can help them through a very difficult time. So the first part of your knowledge phase then. When a Jew is nearing death, their family tries to visit them and make sure someone stays with them so they do not die alone. Just before they die, the person will recite the Shema if they are able to. When a person dies. When Jews first hear of the death of a close family, they follow the example of Jacob by making a small tear in their clothes. For a parent, they make the tear over their hearts. For any other close relative, they make it to the right side of their chest. And as you can see, the Bible teaching here, it says, Jacob rent his clothes, put sackcloth on his loins, and observed mourning for his son for many days, which would link nicely to the fact it was 7 days that they mourned, wasn't it? So, when Jews hear of a death, they say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, the true judge." This shows that they accept God taking the person's life. The deceased is entitled to the same level of respect and dignity as a living person. At death, the eyes of the deceased must be closed, if not already. Some believe that a person cannot look on his life and the life to come at the same time. So by closing the eyes, they close off their life and allow them to see the next. The body will be covered because a dead body is unbecoming, and people should remember the deceased when they were alive rather than dead. The body is put on the ground because it's a source of defilement, and anything it touches or that it touches becomes impure, except the ground. Candles are lit in places at the head, recognising the Proverbs, for the commandment is a lamp and the law of a light. The body will be continually washed until burial to ensure the proper treatment, and because it is believed that the soul will only leave at this point. So, it is reasonable to think that the soul will be in distress at the death, and someone sitting with it is a comfort, and they will recite psalms constantly. Each community has a Hever Kaddish, which is a holy society which we saw in the video, whose members are dedicated to repairing the body and burying the dead. They will work with the funeral parlour to wash the body, dress it in white linen shrouds, showing they were all equal in death, and for male deceased they are wrapped in their tallit, less one of its tzitz, so that it's no longer a holy article, that they no longer have to fulfil the commandments. The act of washing is done according to Jewish law and has both physical and spiritual elements. The work of the Hever Kaddish is the last link of a chain of care and concern for the dead. So the people who help with the death, they keep the mitzvah, which are like Jewish rules of purification, so to keep everything clean, keep everything pure. Being part of the Hever Kaddish is all about teamwork, and they're carrying out a sacred task. Because obviously they're dealing with people's relatives, aren't they, and people's family members, so they obviously want to be as respectful as they possibly can, and they act in the spirit of kindness to help people through a difficult time. And finally, it's important, their work is important, it's such a kindness, and the dead cannot reward this kindness. Okay then, so it's quite a tough topic, isn't it, because we're dealing with death, which people don't really like to talk about, do we? Obviously, we're looking at a different perspective. We're looking at the Jewish perspective of it, but we're looking at how they deal with it and how the Jewish community get help from the Hever Kaddish to help them through this very tough time. So your consolidation phase then. Well, I want you to reread the information that I gave you. Obviously, I've spoke a lot to you, so there's quite a lot of information there, isn't there? Highlight it, it's always the best practice to make sure you're really reading it again, and make notes along the side if you need to. So anyway, moving on to our consolidation phase. What is the Hever Kaddish? These are the questions, that you need to answer. Why are Jews buried in a white shroud? Obviously the information is within the knowledge phase. And why is the body continually watched? Okay, so pause the video, answer these questions, aim for about 2 sentences on each. Number one, obviously, you can go into a lot more detail than just say what they are. You can just say what they do, can't you? Okay then, so pause the video, write a few notes, and we'll move on to the next knowledge phase. Okay then, so the next knowledge phase is the actual burial then. So the first part was about the actual death, and now it's the burial and what happens, okay? So Jews are always buried and they're not cremated. Christians are allowed to be cremated, so it's a difference there, isn't there? Genesis 3:19 says, man is formed from dust and returns to it, so returns back to the ground. The burial happens as soon after the death as possible, preferably on the same day. However, burials may not happen on Shabbat or on a festival day. The casket must be made of wood. A service may be held in the chapel of rest or at the graveside. So here's some pointers towards the service and what has to happen. So, following the example of Jacob, Jews will put a small rip in their clothes on the death of a loved one. The Orthodox do it straight after the death, others before the funeral procession or at the burial. Mourners' clothes are torn deliberately through the material, not along the seam, to represent emotional need and sadness. Many Reformed Jews no longer tear clothes, but rather wear a strip of black ribbon on their outer garment. So Orthodox are more of a stricter Jewish tradition, and Reform is maybe moving to a more modern version. So the casket is carried to the grave with 7 stops made along the way. This shows how difficult the task is, and also there is no desire to hurriedly complete it. The casket is lowered into the grave with the head facing east, as it believes that the dead will be resurrected and rise again in Jerusalem. Either during or after this, prayers will be recited, one of which is the mourner's Kaddish, which is said by the family. So it's only the family that say that one. It's customary for those attending to help fill the grave. A shovel is used, each person puts down on the ground when they've used it, symbolising they do not want to pass sorrow to the next person. Others throw soil onto the casket, and this ritual shows service and love. Okay? The men in attendance make 2 lines between which the bereaved pass. The lines will murmur blessings on the bereaved. May God console you among the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. On returning from the funeral, the first meal must be brought by neighbours and their friends. It traditionally is a dairy-based meal, no meat, and is customary for it to include eggs to represent new life and bread to staff or life. Many of the meals consumed by the bereaved during the next 7 days will be brought to them as gifts or comfort by members of the community, which is part of love and care given to mourners. Reading that, I think that's an absolutely lovely thing that they do. Okay, so it's a very community-based religion. It's all about helping each other out in a very tough time. Okay, you've got to imagine if somebody's lost a loved one, it's the last thing they want to do, isn't it? Is be cooking and like doing the basics. Whereas they've got help from the community, it just makes a tough time a little less tough, doesn't it? Okay then, so your next consolidation task, again I want you to read through the information, highlight it, because there's quite a lot of things here. Again, it's quite a deep and quite a tough topic to read, isn't it? So the consolidation task, the questions are: which prayer is said by the family at the graveside? Annotate the information on what happens when a person dies. So that's really making you read through the information, write some notes on it, and highlight the key parts of a Jewish funeral. Okay? So I'll just explain it again. So which said by the family at the graveside? Annotate the information. So annotate means write some notes about it, okay? And highlight the key parts of a Jewish funeral, okay? The third part is going to really help you in your application phase. So that'd be the most important consolidation task that you need to do. Okay then, so pause the video and we'll move on to the application phase, which is the last part. Okay then, so the application phase is a B question. It's worth 5 marks, and all we're asking you to do is to describe the key features of a Jewish burial. Obviously this information is above you, isn't it, here in the workbook. So we're roughly looking for you to get 3 points from the work above. We do want you to submit these answers because it is a Friday and we submit on Fridays. Okay, so you should submit it via Share My Homework to your teachers, either by Word document, and if you have to, by taking a picture on your phone. But we'd rather you did do it by submitting a Word document because it makes it easier to read and give you feedback on. Okay then, so for the application phase you need 3 points, using your what, why, wider, and that is it then, Year 7. Okay, as usual, take care, and we all look forward to seeing you in September. Okay then, bye bye.